Class 10 student, this is chapter number 1 of your Civics Power Sharing, and in this video we will cover this chapter in just 10 minutes. And yes, this is a rapid revision. So my dear students, just imagine a country where different group of people exist who speak different language, who have different festivals and their culture traditions. But in this country they will wish that everyone will be respected, their culture is respected, their language is respected, and what if this is not respected? The result will be civil crisis. We are going to cover this chapter with the case of Belgium and of Sri Lanka. So these two countries who have seen power sharing differently. Basically, the word power sharing itself justify its meaning that power is shared in the civil sense. Basically, the word power sharing itself justify its meaning that the power is shared in the democratic sphere. So what we are going to cover in this chapter, these 5 important topics, and I am pretty sure that after this you will get full marks from this chapter, and the topics are ethnic composition of Sri Lanka and Belgium. After that, we will figure out what are the problems faced by these countries, how they find the solutions, and after all, if they find a solution, how power sharing is desirable, and in literal sense, in practical sense, how power sharing is adopted in the modern democracies across the world. So let's begin reading this chapter in just 10 minutes. We will start with the case of Belgium, as the map signifies that Belgium is an European nation. You know, the population of this nation is just 1 crore. It is surrounded by its neighboring countries like France, Germany, Netherlands and Luxembourg. Now, what was the problem in this country, Belgium, a European nation with a capital Brussels? So problem was its ethnic composition. As you can see the map here, the northern region is known as Flemish region. Here, the population is 59% population of the total country which speaks the language Dutch. However, the southern red region is known as Wallonia region, where 40% of the total population lives and speaks the language French. However, the situation in the capital was quite different. The capital is Brussels. As you can see, here 80% of the people speaks the language French and 20% speaks the language Dutch, which itself creates a problem. Now comes in mind, what is the rest to 1% population? They speak the language German. Now, the problem was its ethnic composition. If you will look at this ethnic composition, you will figure out that the majority in the country speaks the language Dutch. However, the minority in the country speaks the language French. When we see the situation in capital, the majority of the people speaks the language French. However, the minority speaks the language Dutch, and this itself is a major problem. Why? Because French people were relatively rich and powerful. As they were rich and powerful, they can enjoy the benefits of the nation before the Dutch people get it. So Dutch were quite resented through this, and this resentment, however, leads to civil crisis in the nation. So basically, now the question comes, did they sorted the problem, or the problem existed till now? We will figure that out after reading the case of Sri Lanka. As you know, Sri Lanka is an Asian country, right? So in the south as you know, Sri Lanka is a southern country in the south of Tamil coast of India. If we talk about population, it's 2 crore, and we can see that it is an island nation. Then in such a small nation, what problem existed? The problem was same, that was its ethnic composition. If you look at the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka, you will find that the majority of population in Sri Lanka speaks the language Sinhala, and that is 74%, and they follow the religion, that is Buddhism. However, there are other people like Tamilians here who speaks the language Tamil, and 18% is their population which follow the religion Hindu and Muslim. They are which follow the religion Hindu and Islamism. The rest of the population, that is 7%, is Christians. Now, among this 18% Tamilians, there are 13% Tamilians who are Sri Lankan Tamilian. That means their forefathers belongs to Sri Lanka. However, the rest 5% are Indian Tamilians which were brought to Sri Lanka by Britishers. So, the problem was that here the majority population was of Sinhala. And the time when Sri Lanka got independent, that is 1948, this Sinhala population decided to follow majoritarian measure. And do you know what is majoritarian measure? That means the majority of nation wants to rule the nation by anyhow possible. So they adopted certain measures, like they introduced a law in the year 1956 that Sinhala will be the official language of the nation. Point number 2, they introduced certain preferential policies that government will give preference to only Sinhala peoples in the government job admissions. The government introduced certain preferential policies that preference will be given to Sinhalas in the government college admissions as well as university positions and jobs too. And the third and the very most important, that they will be fostering and protecting only the religion Buddhism. Don't you think that tensions will arise in the nation after that? Yes. Tamilians, Sri Lankan Tamilians felt alienated that neither our language is being respected nor the religion is being respected in the nation. So they decided that we are residing in the northeastern part of Sri Lanka, we want a separate state, and the demand of separate Tamil Eelam started in the nation. Do you know that this demand and this crisis was known as civil crisis in Sri Lanka till 2009? Sri Lanka was facing the civil crisis. Now what about Belgium? Because they were also having civil crisis in the nation, right? But they sorted the problem by power sharing, and it is referred as accommodation in Belgium, right? They were quite intelligent than Sri Lankan people. What they did is they divided everything. Point number 1. They said that in the central government, number of ministers from both the communities, Dutch and French, will be equal. Point number 1. Right? From the central government, power will be shared to state government so that state government no longer remains subordinate to the central government. Point number 3, in Brussels, there will be a separate government. In this separate government, number of representatives will be equal from both the communities. Point number 4, that's very, very important, that there will be a separate special type of community government. Community government for each community is like Dutch, French and Germans. And they will be specially making laws on the matters of their language, culture and religion. So this was a type of power sharing that is adopted by Belgium. After this, there was peaceful coexistence, and do you know, Brussels was chosen as an headquarter of various big organizations in Europe. So this is accommodation in Belgium. However, Sri Lankan people has not adopted any such measures and face civil crisis, which clearly make us indicate that power sharing is important and should be desirable in a nation. Right? If we talk about the prudential reason why power sharing is desirable, because it solves the social conflict and brings harmony in the political order. And if we talk about the moral reasons, it is the very essence of democracy, because if power sharing is there, that means that every time power is there, people are consulted, and this is what democracy means, right? And if we talk about practical sense, that where in the modern democracies we are seeing the power sharing. My dear students, this is a 5-marker question, very, very important, that what are the forms of power sharing in modern democracies? Point number 1, among different organs of government like legislature, which makes the law, executive, which executes the law, and judiciary, that upholds the law. It is also known as horizontal power sharing, and it is based upon the system of checks and balances. If we talk about the second form, it is among different levels of government. At the top, there is central government in India. Then there is state government at the middle level, and then we have local government. Other than that, there is power sharing among different social groups, as we have just seen in the case of Belgium. Community government, different social group speaking different languages got equal right, having their own government, right, to make laws on certain issues. If we talk about social groups and power sharing, we can see reservation, ST, SC, OBC and women in India. How social groups are given equal rights and try to bring equality in a nation. The fourth and the very most important, when power sharing is done between political parties, pressure groups and movements, right? If we see that there are times when a single political party do not get majority in the nation, then what they do, different political together, parties come together and form a government. Example, coalition government. So the example to this power sharing is coalition government. Other than that, we can see whenever government makes the law, certain trade unions, etc., just raise their voice and start movements against the government. So this is what? A clear-cut power sharing between the government and the people. So these are the 4 forms of power sharing in modern democracies, and this is how in just 10 minutes we completed the chapter. Meet me soon with the next chapter of SST for class 10th.